Hi there, John Moore here, and I'm a shamanic teacher, practitioner, and healer from the state of Maine. And I want to talk to you today about soul loss, which is a very important topic in shamanic healing. In fact, it's the number one reason why people come to me for shamanic healing. And so the ceremony for healing soul loss is called a soul retrieval ceremony, and it's common across many different cultures that have shamans or whatever the term for it is in the language that of the culture. Soul loss, if you think of your soul as another body, we have a physical body, we have an energetic body, we have this soul body. It's not physical, but it's made up of soul matter, soul material, soul essence. And soul loss happens when a part of our essence gets separated from us and for whatever reason doesn't return. And this can lead to all kinds of things. So, all of the symptoms of PTSD, like dissociation, flashbacks, anxiety, depression, it can lead to physical issues. It can lead to a feeling of disconnection from the self, right? If you have dissociation, there are two types of dissociation. One is depersonalization, where you feel like you're not really in your body or you're not in control of your body. And the other one's called derealization, where you feel like the world is a dream or you're underwater or you're detached from reality and somehow. And so all of these things are symptoms of a detachment, this part of you. So this part of you gets splits away and it gets stuck and it hasn't returned on its own. So you go see a shaman and they perform a soul retrieval ceremony to help reunite you with this part of yourself, with this essence that you've lost. How do parts of us get lost? How does soul loss happen? And that's the topic of this video. Well, the number one way that soul loss happens is through trauma. And, we can think of trauma as anything that happens to us that causes us a great deal of fear or a great deal of horror or, that sort of thing, right? Where we're actually maybe in fear for our lives. And so, but it doesn't have to be in fear for our lives. It can be all kinds of trauma. There's all love. There's childhood trauma. There's sexual trauma. There's violent trauma. There's secondhand trauma where somebody is describing trauma to you, and you can be traumatized by that. You can witness something happening to somebody else. And so part of us goes, ooh, this feels unsafe. I'm going to jump away to safety. And for whatever reason, it gets stuck there. And that part is essentially stuck in time. If you had soul loss that happened when you were 6 and you're now 50, that part hasn't aged or grown up. It's still a 6-year-old part of yourself. And that's why there's usually integration work. So you see a shaman, they do the soul retrieval ceremony to help reunite that part. But then they're going to say, oh, to fully integrate this part back into you, to fully stand in your power with all of your parts back together again, you have to do some work to make this part feel comfortable rejoining. It's like almost like a little version of yourself that's out there in the world that hasn't aged or grown or learned. Okay? So trauma is by far the most common way that soul loss happens, but there are a few other ways, and I will talk about those as well. Um, so there can be what we call soul stealing, and this happens most of the time on an unconscious level, where somebody is really needy, or you're in kind of an unhealthy relationship, and you take somebody's essence, or somebody takes your essence and absconds with it. It's very, very common. And again, it's not something conscious. It's not like I'm gonna steal your soul kind of thing. It's not like that, usually. I mean, there are people who do stuff like that on purpose. They're few and far between, but it happens. But sometimes our soul essences depart with another person. And so again, same ceremony, soul retrieval ceremony, where we coax that part back. And it doesn't really belong to the other person anyway. So it's not doing them much good at all. Another way we can lose soul essence is there can be a slow draw, a slow leakage of soul material if we are in a long-term circumstance that is unhealthy. So unhealthy relationships are one way where, like, people will sometimes describe unhealthy relationships like, I feel a little bit of myself dying all the time, right? And that's what it feels like. It's getting, your essence is getting pulled away more and more and more, and you're becoming less and less you, or you're starting to dissociate, or you're getting more and more depressed. So there can be a slow leakage of soul essence. And the other way that soul loss happens in my experience is from substance abuse, and this can be, or any kind of addictive behavior, really. But primarily, I see this with substance abuse, and people who become addicted to substances frequently wind up sort of fracturing the self. And this happens in a number of ways. One, there can be this slow leakage as you are creating a hostile environment inside yourself for your soul, because you're, feeding it toxins or whatever. It over time says, I'm leaving, I'm going someplace safe, and I'm going to stay there until this gets fixed. And the other way that it can happen is if you're using drugs to the point, drugs or alcohol or whatever substances you're using, to the point where it is risking your health or your life. So if you, you know, black out or overdose or any of those things, that's another form of trauma. You're traumatizing yourself, but that can still happen, and that can cause a sudden soul loss. Um, Somebody once asked me, would shamanic healing be helpful for somebody who's addicted? And my answer to that is yes, sort of. If somebody is in active addiction, it's sort of like patching a hole in a ship that's falling apart, in that there's going to be other leaks that are happening. Like, as we recover this part, maybe this part's. So, well, shamanic healing, I would recommend it for somebody who has, addiction. Um, it's really good if they are also, doing what they can to get clean or get off their addiction, or get a handle on their addiction, so that it's not just a band-aid type fix or a temporary thing. That being said, a tremendous amount of substance abuse, and it may be 100% of substance abuse, there is trauma in the background behind that. And that was something that I've run into with clients, but also in speaking with a friend who runs an addiction center. He's like, yeah, he goes, we have to treat the underlying trauma to even begin to work with the substance addiction. So there you have it. So that can cause it as well. So trauma, I would include, surgery with that. So many people going through surgery have soul loss from that. Um, Being in life circumstances or relationships over a long period of time that are unhealthy, that our soul just wants to get away from. And addiction. Those are the top ways that I've seen loss, and soul stealing. Those are the top ways that I have seen in my practice soul loss happen. Certainly, there can be other ways, right? There can be other ways that it happens, but these are by far the most common. And as it turns out, pretty much everybody I've run into has had some traumatic event in their past where there has been some soul loss. So nearly everybody, and in the first few years of my practice, 100% of my clients came to me with soul loss. So worked with them on soul retrieval. So that is a little bit about how soul loss happens, and I hope that's helpful. And I've got other videos on soul retrieval and what soul retrieval experiences are like. Give this video a like, subscribe to my channel. You can also join and get access um, to some members only videos and things like that and other perks. So I will talk to you very soon. Take care.